First of all, thanks for coming in. Ronan, you might take me through this, and I'm trying to get it into my head. In the line of the mat, the slat mat, what you're saying is that the animal thrives quicker, which Chagas have done the research, that it actually ends up that the animal is not as long on the farm, to put it simple. And explain to me where you were talking about, say, the solid manure and the solid manure not mixing on the slat when it goes down, that it doesn't allow methane. Explain that to me. I want to get my head around the aeration system. Is it the aeration system, is there an additive added to it, and is there with the it keeps it basically soft all the time? So look, I know a small bit, we're contractors, it stops, what you're saying, going by what you're saying there, it stops about, we use 39 litres an hour of diesel when we're agitating. That's the facts of, if you have an agitator and a fairly big tractor trying to get it agitated fairly quick. You were saying it avoids that, first of all. Second of all, you're saying, I understand your point when you were talking to Brian there about that you have you have 2 days roughly. I've often seen slurry after 2 days, you're going nowhere with it, like it's gone too thick. You were saying that the farmer has the choice of be it a good day or that he can pick their days that you're putting it out, that you're not forced that 2 days of a window that you have to put it out. Explain to me, and I suppose from my sins and being in machinery, explain to me the mechanism that's involved. Is there a motor? Is it a piped system? And explain to me how it reduces, if you can, this methane that's within in the tank, and is it clear then that when this is going on and it's sort of soft all the time, that there's no emissions going up during the day or on a continuous basis? I'm trying to get my head around that bit. I was interested in, PJ, what you said there about the different countries, and you made reference on about Ireland getting sort of a kick in the teeth about a journalist. You might come on to me about where you're talking about that, or some journalist undercover or something is what I understand. Just if you go through them, and I'll have a couple of more questions ready for you after that.
Thank you, Deputy Fitzmaurice. So I'll address your slat rubber question first. So from a performance point of view, it is proven the world over in numerous trials that animals will thrive better on a rubber flooring versus a concrete flooring where a slatted system is in use. And the most recent trial done by Chagas, which was published in late 2021. And
it's just sorry for interrupting you. Will this say, are you talking about dairy? Are you talking about beef? Are you talking about a Wainland? Is it all?
You can take all animals.
So to suit all parts of a country like the west of Ireland and all that?
Absolutely. Right. So on that Chagas trial, they got about a 17% increase in performance. So performance typically would equate to what you would like, I suppose, or anticipate you would get off a straw-based system. Concrete animals wouldn't perform as well just because, I suppose, of it's a comfort thing. They probably consume more energy in terms of when they're in housing, and their feed conversion is poorer. So typically, if you were to give it a numbers, Deputy Fitzmaurice, you might look at animals, let's say on a finishing diet, might put on, let's say, 1.1 kilos per day. On a rubber slatted system, you might increase that maybe to about 1.3, 1.4.
Right.
Okay? So that's where you get your extra performance, and that will give you reduced days to beef. Typically, on average, we would see the days to beef being reduced by anything from 21 to 28 days. That will represent a significant savings in terms of emissions from the animal. It will also represent a significant, I suppose, make farmers more efficient and profitable in that animals are processed faster on the farm. Okay? To explain the ammonia, how it happens, so if you had a concrete slash or a flat surface, urine and feces, when they mix, it's like a chemical reaction takes place. And that basically forms ammonia, and ammonia is released into the atmosphere. With the application of a rubber covering over the slat, our rubber has got a curved profile on top. The urine drains into the tank pretty much instantly. Therefore, urea's activity doesn't take place.
And does it take place in the tank? No?
It will take place in the tank, but from the point of the amount of ammonia emitted from housing and storage, typically 2/3 or close to 70% of ammonia comes from the floor, and 1/3 would come from the tank. So it's significantly reduced. And with the application of both technologies together, you can reduce the ammonia coming from the tank by 51% and from the floor by over 30%. Okay? Your question on the slurry technology system, there is no additives used to enhance the slurry, or that a farmer has to manually add periodically to it, in the sense that some people put in slurry bugs and that, which need to be put in a certain time at and it needs to be mixed and activated and stuff like that. So that there is no, if you want to call it, labour intervention by the farmer. A system is set up to run and treat the slurry. So it will eliminate the need for agitation.
When you say treat, what do you mean by treat? That's what
we would always look at it that what you're trying to do is alter the microbiology of the manure. So when manure leaves an animal and enters the tank, it is in an anaerobic state. And from there, anaerobic activity typically is what causes emissions on farm. So it's the reason why ammonia is released, it's the reason why methane is released, it's the microbiology that's happening down in the tank. When you inject oxygenated air through a network of pipes that are fixed to the floor of the tank, which is driven by a compressor, you're putting in oxygenated air that basically feeds the aerobic bacteria who are in, let's call it, a semi-dormant state. Those aerobic bacteria, what you're trying to do is alter the levels and the balance, so that instead of the anaerobic being the dominant force in the tank, that's, let's call it, doing the damage, releasing methane and that, the aerobic are awoken, they start to thrive, and they suppress the anaerobic, which is why you get ammonia locked in, which is your nutrients are remaining in the slurry. It's why the methane is no longer volatilized off. So it's all about the microbiology. So systems like this, it's not a case of, if I decide I was going to put out slurry in a week's time, I'll turn on the system 4 days before it and it'll be in a nice liquid state. The system is designed that you're treating the slurry. As long as you've got manure in the tank that you want to utilize, you're treating the slurry. And it's about getting the microbiology of the slurry correct. And that's what our system achieves.
And does it leave it, say, we'd be used to, say, if you're using slurry in agitator, you'll be putting it out, you say, if on the splash plate it's always thicker than, I noticed that you had the less system there, the low emission slurry spreading system there. Does it leave it, do you have to add water to it? No. Does it leave it in a way that you can put it out, like digestate the same, that it's basically that will go through a pump system, to put it simple, which would be better for people that would be on more difficult land, do you know what I mean? But does it do all that, and on top of that, is this like are these pipes along the floor? Or explain to me what I'm trying to get my head around.
Okay. So there is a network of pipes that are fixed to the floor.
Right.
Okay? They all run back to a compressor. And the compressor basically drives air through that network of pipes. Each area of your tank gets treated with air twice per day for roughly about 4.5 minutes for each location. Okay? Then the system, that's your treatment of your manure. What you're doing is you're making sure you have a very consistent manure, as opposed to solids settling on the bottom and kind of water in the middle and then crusting on top. So it'll prevent the crusting forming on the top that typically, when you typically go in with an agitator, you're breaking down the crust, and it's like opening a bottle. You're lifting the lid, and suddenly you have hydrogen sulfide, nitrous oxide, and all the gases that have claimed, unfortunately, the lives of animals.
I think one part of this we've missed is, and look at every one of us had near scrapes, the danger of going into a shed, and I think we should remember the people that has lost lives as well.
Absolutely.
When you break the crust, the gas that comes, if so many people has got caught with it, I think that it's one part of it you should talk about, because we haven't touched on it in the safety side of it.
Yeah. And
Fitzmaurice, animals that have been around, when you put the agitator into a tank, it can catch out so
Yeah,
easily.
no matter how good you are.
And you know, there is the danger, not as important obviously as human life, but there's been a significant number of animals lost with agitation as well. But unfortunately, every year, I'd just like to get the figures on it. I'd say 2 to 3 fatalities every year with slurry anyway on farm.
10% of farm deaths from 2007 to 2018 were caused by slurry accidents. And there is no warning. It's not a case of that you get a warning, you can move away. No. It's literally, it's instant that it happens. So it will eliminate all of that.
Like clapping your hands, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. So the safety aspect is a huge part for it. So it will prevent deaths of
and give me say, you talk about grants and all that, say, what percentage, or have you looked at this in Ireland, what percentage of farmers has slad sheds, what length are cattle in sheds? I know on the west, say for us, we'd have cattle in a way longer than where Jackie is from, do you know what I mean? Because the land quality would be different, and if you went down south further, to be out earlier, maybe in February. What's the average length that cattle are in sheds, and what, in your opinion, or from research, or I don't know that you've done, is there, what amount of slad sheds are in the country? And on a ballpark, on a ballpark for farmers to go down this road on an average 3-bay shed, or I suppose scale is it depends on scale, but on an average 3-bay shed or a 3-bay double and a suspended passage or whatever, an average 3-bay shed, we'll say on its own, is it expensive to get in all this system? And is the compressor just an ordinary compressor that runs with the electric? Okay.
I'll just take the last part of that question, and then I'll let Niall address the main part, the first part of it. So the system is driven by a compressor, which is a very specific model in terms of the volume and frequency of air that's used, which is linked to a rotary valve that basically drives the air into the tank, into each location for a specific volume of air for a specific amount of time. So that's, I suppose, the mechanics of the slurry technology system.
They'd be like stop valves and the rest of it to let it...
Well, it's a rotary valve, so when it's pushing air to the first one, it'll go, and then it goes to the next port, and the sequence continues.
All right.
Niall?
On the previous part of your question, Michael Fitzmaurice, regarding the amount of sheds that are in the country, and you know, your ballpark is the right word to use, because we're estimating over 100,000, with only 20% of them having rubber flooring currently. And that kind of brings us back to a previous question you mentioned that hasn't been addressed, was the Dutch article that was done by a Dutch journalist for a publication out there. The journalist's name was Walker Dyer, and basically came to Ireland to do well, you could call it an undercover expose on beef production in Ireland. Visited a number of sheds and found that our beef production was predominantly on cold, slippy concrete slats, as he described them, with little room for each animal, maybe only up to 2.5 square metres. This was quite an embarrassing article for Bord Bia, who were the target of this article, due to the green grass-fed image that we portray around the world. They decided that image needed to be exposed for what it was. Now, the reality of it is that 60% of our cattle for 60% of their year is outside on grass. But in the reality of it is 40% is indoor because it's not feasible or practical to have cattle out all year round. So 40% of an animal's life is kept indoors. Only 20% of the floors that they're on have soft rubber flooring. So there's a huge amount of cattle on those slats that journalist mentioned. It was obviously embarrassing for Board Bia, and I mean, you know, for food to get a stamp of quality, surely the animal coming out of comfortable circumstances would be one of the main requirements.
I accept the comfort of the animal, but I suppose our agenda here today
yes, of course.
is reduction, it's climate change, and what we can do for climate change. I accept the comfort of the animal is quality assurance and all that is fine, but our topic here today is how your technology can reduce emissions.
Of course, but on top of the basic principle of comfort, you have the added benefits of reducing your ammonia by getting the urine into the tank quicker. So it's just, you know, answering the question that Deputy Fitzmaurice.
What's the ballpark? Could you come to me in the ballpark? I was on about the 3-bay shed of the farmer around the country. What's the ballpark roughly to put in gear like this to bring down your emissions?
For, as you say, a 3-bay slatted shed, which would be typical of what we'd have in the west of Ireland, you'd be looking at about €3,500.
That's not too bad,
yeah.
That's beautiful. That's including compressor and everything, is it?
No, sorry, that's just the slatted floor underneath the tank. Then for a tank that size,
I'm on about the aerating system.
Yeah, the aeration system, you'd be looking at about 5,000 to 7,000. But obviously, as on bigger sheds, that price is reduced due to the fact that your main gear being your compressor,
to be scaled
is
as well.
servicing more of an area. Yeah.
And do you have to go a bigger compressor for a 3-bay double suspended, or will the one compressor do?
The one compressor will cover a huge
That's
amount.
good to know. Thanks very much, and I'll let the next person in.